Well, good Monday morning to you. Welcome to our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. I'm your host, Jim Tabor, along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition, located on Cal and Lorraine Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. We do this every Monday morning. In case this is the first time you've tuned in, what we do is we take your calls, and this is a live call-in show. We did take the morning off last week, but we are here live today, and what we're doing is trying to help you live a healthier lifestyle. So you can call in at 896-0713 or 800-349-0713 and pass the question along to our producer, and they will pass it along to us. Now, usually the first Monday of the month we do Open Line Monday. We take any questions, but again, last week we took the day off. So today is Open Line Monday. So any questions you have regarding your health, be happy to take them. Matter of fact, one of the last questions we got before our last show, we didn't have time to talk about. Somebody called in and asked to talk about Graves' disease.
Yep. Now, Graves is a thyroid issue, and we were talking about thyroid, I believe, that show, and they, at the very last minute, wanted us to say what we thought about Graves. Well, Graves is an autoimmune thyroid problem, and it is probably the most common reason for overactive thyroid. It's not the only reason, but it is the most common reason. So the body attacks its own thyroid. It actually affects an antibody that then kind of takes over the regulation of the thyroid, and then it overproduces thyroid hormone. You can get a lot of symptoms from Graves' disease, from high blood pressure to jittery to your heart pounding to weight loss, hair loss. I mean, another thing that's kind of linked with Graves is some of the eye bulging that you can get. Only about 30% of the people with Graves' disease get it, where it weakens the muscles around the eye and the eyes start bulging. And sometimes that's the first symptom people notice that they see. Although most people probably know it ahead of time because you do feel so different and so weird. Everybody I've ever talked to with it, you don't feel well when that hits.
Well, high heart rate's usually a biggie too. Real
now,
high.
medical treatment is they actually have to lower that thyroid function because it can get dangerous. If you get into a thyroid storm, that can actually be life-threatening. So you look at lowering the thyroid, and there's multiple ways of doing that. Now, with people that have had Graves and be an autoimmune, a lot of times after that's lowered, then you tend to get lower thyroid after the thyroid is destroyed, or they have a few different ways. They can then medicate, they can radiate, they can remove the thyroid. Yeah. So that's the different things that can be done. Naturally, we always try to support the immune system, and we use something called Olivir that actually is antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasite, which is we use for a lot of autoimmune problems, and Graves is an autoimmune problem. So if you have any other questions, whoever called in with that question, just give us a call at the store and we'll be happy to answer your question.
I was trying to Google real fast to see if, remember the actor Marty Feldman? That was in Young Frankenstein that had the big bulgy eyes. I was wondering
I don't know
if he had Graves' disease. Now that you mentioned, of course, they may have not known what it was back. That was a long time ago.
They knew.
Anyway, okay, Sarah wrote in and asked, is there a difference between leg cramps and restless leg syndrome?
Yeah, there is.
Yes.
I mean, cramps are just common when the muscle can't function properly and it'll start cramping or tightening up. It takes, everybody talks about magnesium, and a lot of people talk about potassium for cramps. And potassium can be a possibility. But it takes two things to happen for a muscle to work properly, to move or whatever. One is it takes calcium to contract a muscle and magnesium to relax it. So if you have too much calcium, not enough magnesium, you can have cramps. And then you can get into some of the other things, even sodium, potassium, and so on.
Sodium can do it, potassium can do it. And so that's muscle cramps. Yeah. Restless leg syndrome is totally different. A lot of times we find with restless leg, and it depends on the person, it can actually be a iron deficiency, a B12 deficiency, a folate deficiency. So there are a lot of times, that's the first thing we look for with restless leg is there a nutritional deficiency?
Right.
So, and I have even seen some thyroid problems increase restless legs. So you just have to they are totally different. They just both affect the legs.
Yeah.
Or muscle cramps can be anywhere though.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I always say a lot of people get them in the legs, but muscle cramps can be anywhere.
All right, I got a question. What are the early signs of going through menopause, and what can I do to make them more tolerable?
The first things we hear,
defer
'cause
on
I
you.
deal with, I talk to people, women every day, every day. Let's do this, you know. The first symptoms, now usually it is actually called perimenopause, which means it's before menopause. And of course, menopause symptoms are you stop having a cycle, of course, and that's where you know it's really starting menopause. But people start having hot flashes. It can actually be where they don't sleep as well. Anxiety is one of the really big symptoms. Yep. Progesterone is usually the first hormone to fall when you start affecting menopause or before menopause. And when the progesterone falls, you tend to have higher cortisol, which is the stress hormone. You definitely tend to have way more anxiety, weight gain. Everybody starts saying, I'm gaining weight and I'm doing nothing different. And so you can start having the weight gain even before complete menopause. So because there's an imbalance in estrogen and progesterone. So there's tons of symptoms. It can be almost anything. I mean, really, we hear so many, and always everybody's hair. You know, the hair starts changing, and hair does change after menopause. Hormones affect everything. People don't realize how much hormones affect you. And you said, okay, what can you do to better help yourself, ease the problems? Depends on the problem. I always tell people the first thing to do is to do the lab work, especially in that situation, because we want to see, is it menopause, or is it thyroid problems can mimic it, adrenal problems can mimic it. First we see, is it really a problem, and is it both hormones that's fallen or just the progesterone? Because we do have a transdermal progesterone cream that you can use if it's just the progesterone, or if someone's a little younger, we'll actually use something like DIM to maybe trigger your own production if you're not real far into it. You can check FSH and LH to see if they're sky high, then yeah, you're closer to menopause. You can actually look to see, are you closer or not? So there's definitely things to look for first to see what issues are going along with it. And then we use stuff accordingly. We do have a transdermal estriol cream, and it does wonders for the hot flashes, and it does help where you can still lose weight if you try. It's not just a magic weight loss. Nothing is, unfortunately. So, and then we have stuff like, you know, we have Metabalance, and we have Minofem, and we have all kind of menopause formulas for hot flashes and going through menopause. DIM is one that we use a lot too, and DIM can kind of help go through menopause easier. Although most of the research on DIM is for cancer prevention, breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So there's a lot of things we can do, and it just depends on the person, and everybody's different. I do say menopause is one of those things that's just not one thing works for every person.
Now, if you have 10 women with menopause symptoms, there'll be 11 different fixes.
Yeah, so you do have to, that is definitely on an individual basis, but we do have things to help. Yep.
Okay. 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. We have more questions, more callers coming up in just a moment. 8 minutes after 9 o'clock. You're watching the Doctor's Nutrition Show. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Our phone lines are open at 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. Tammy called in and asked a question along with the line of menopause. Mentioned about when your cycle, when the lady cycles in. She said every month when she goes through a cycle, the cramps are so bad that she can hardly stand up. Is there anything that I can do?
Yes, we have a couple things that we do. One is the DIM that I just mentioned for the other person with menopause, but DIM does help. It takes 2 to 3 months to get to full effect, so it's not quick. So we do use DIM for sure when people have the bad cycles, even bad PMS, and it helps with mood. It helps a lot of the stuff associated with the bad cycle. The other thing that can work quick is something called Cramp Bark Extra. And it's just that, it's for cramp bark. And you take it just at the time of the cycle. So it's kind of, you take it as needed. DIM you take all the time. So, and we have some people that, you know, start with both because the Cramp Bark Extra works quick. And the DIM, I like DIM better just because it helps the problem long term, and it helps straighten out the hormones that's causing the problem, not just the symptom. The Cramp Bark Extra really just relaxes the uterus, and so it makes the cramping better.
Okay. Bob wants to know, how important is it to get my testosterone checked?
Well, it depends on Bob's age, but you know, usually after about, say, 45 or so, we suggest it simply because you can start seeing, and we're seeing more and more of it.
Actually, we're seeing it younger and younger.
We are seeing it younger. Unfortunately, we're seeing it younger and younger. And a lot of it now is being tied to insulin resistance. Okay. We talk about this a lot. Insulin resistance is kind of the precursor, if you will, to the diabetes thing, so pre-diabetes, et cetera. And one of the first things we see is testosterone will start to go down. So yes, good idea to check it and check some of the other parameters as well. Look at that sugar handling. We always do, in the metabolic panel, look at your fasting glucose or sugar, but then we do the hemoglobin A1C, and then we do the fasting insulin.
Yep.
So the higher that insulin goes, even if you're controlling your A1C and you're not pre-diabetic or anything at that point, you may be insulin resistant. The higher the insulin goes, the more insulin resistance we're looking at.
And the lower the testosterone.
Lower the testosterone goes. And there's not virtually any supplement that we've seen that will effectively raise that testosterone unless you get control of that sugar.
All right. Did you have something over there that you wanted to?
Well, there's a study here about, and it's kind of interesting, coming out of McGill University, so it's fairly decent. We'll give them credit for being pretty good. But anyhow, what they talked about was Alzheimer's and obesity. And they said obesity-related neurodegeneration, which is something that a lot of people don't realize. There is a neuro or brain degeneration associated with obesity. And they studied people with both Alzheimer's and obesity. And they found that the same regions of the brain were actually shrinking. So it's like, okay, what is it? Is it obesity related? Is this the beginning of the Alzheimer's thing? So just another reason that we really, really, really need to pay attention to our diet and other things.
And weight, because obesity is associated with almost every disease.
Yeah,
you start looking at cancer risks, diabetes risks, high blood pressure risk. Exactly. So obesity, it's not just about how you look.
Yeah.
It's really about health, because there's no doubt it is linked with so many health problems.
Yeah.
So if you are obese, start doing something to change it, because you can change it. But it does take an active, somebody being active trying to do it if you have that problem. So, but you got to start somewhere. So I always tell people, start out with small steps and, get more and more and more, like I say, but you definitely want to pay attention to obesity because it is linked to so many problems.
Right.
Okay. Any tips for improving my immune system?
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, there's so many things you can do.
That's another show.
And everybody needs to keep doing it.
Yeah.
We're, right now, of course, this winter has been like the triple viruses. It wasn't just COVID, it wasn't just the flu, it wasn't just RSV. It's been all of them. And actually the norovirus is actually going around right now. So there's so many viruses that are going around, and you got to keep the immune system strong.
Stomach viruses.
Right, that was the norovirus.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yep, that's actually the one that's going around. It's making people pretty sick.
My daughter is dealing with that right now.
Yeah, so it's going around the country is what I was reading.
Well, she lives in Louisiana, so it's making its way around.
So it's one, you want to keep your immune system up. And even if you keep your immune system up, it doesn't mean you ain't going to get sick. It might mean you recover quicker from it. It might mean that you can get over it and it won't put you in the hospital.
But we talked about it all the time about the things like probiotics, excellent thing. And then again, when we talk about doing something like this is not something you do for a weekend.
No.
You do it, and you just make it part of your life. But one of the biggies in pretty much the immune modulation is vitamin D. And we see so many people, unbelievable, so many people that took it when they were, a year or so ago, when COVID was the bad boy of the town, but they've stopped. Oh, it's gone. No, it hasn't gone.
Exactly.
It's still here. It's changed, and it will keep changing. It's what viruses do.
Yeah, and everybody kind of knows from COVID, the D, the zinc, the C, and yes, those are all good. If somebody is even more immune compromised or they tend to get sick more often, some of the mushroom combinations are so good.
Yeah.
Some of the mushrooms do amazing things.
Really do.
Even one we have called AHCC, it is a little expensive, but a lot of the research at MD Anderson has been showing that it actually can clear HPV, which is human papillomavirus, which is associated with cervical cancer and throat cancer. So there's been a lot of research on it because it could actually, they thought before that virus could never go away, and they are finding that it suppresses it to where it's undetectable. I kind of think that most viruses are still there because I have seen a few people do it and it's gone and then it comes back if they stop taking it. You might just go to a lower dose to maintain.
Yeah. Well, I take the ADK2.
Exactly.
That's the vitamin D, and it is very good for the immune system.
One of the things that we've seen in viruses, and this should be the scary part to everybody, when they started breaking down the DNA, looking at our genome, we found so many snippets, if you will, of actual viruses in our DNA. And some of them probably went back, 10, 15 generations or more. And it's still part of your DNA. So
they do think some viruses can be genetically inherited.
Right.
And again, you want to keep those viruses suppressed to where they don't come out. Olivir is another really big one we use for, it's antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasite. It actually does help the immune system. It is safe to take long term.
Yeah.
We use it for autoimmune problems of all kinds. But it also just keeps you from getting sick, and that's a good one to have in your medicine cabinet.
Yeah,
It certainly is.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
896-0713 or 800-349-0713. We're coming up with our last break in just a moment, and we'll also have this week's special. It's 19 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we are in the final segment of this week's Live Doctors Nutrition Show. Let's go ahead and look at what the special of the week is.
Yeah, we have 25% off on our liver detox and support. We live in a toxic world. We think detoxification is something we need to do, literally probably an ongoing day in, day out basis. And then we have the hyaluronic acid. That's kind of super special. It's 50% off. Hyaluronic acid is kind of one of the keys to building good collagen in the body. Without hyaluronic acid, you can't make your collagen, or it won't hold together. So great stuff to have.
Yeah, and liver detox and support. People think of detox. Oh, I'm going to detox this week. You need a detox every day.
Yeah.
It is our liver detox and support is safe to take daily. We take it ourselves daily because we do live. It gets rid of some of the chemicals and toxins and carcinogens and things like that. And you want that on a daily. But it is not one that makes you run to the bathroom.
Nope.
So it's not that kind. People think, well, I get that question asked every time. Well, does this make me run? No, it is not a colon cleanse.
Yeah.
It is just where it has something for every different pathway of the liver in it.
Yeah.
So it's just really good for overall health, and it's good for daily detoxification.
Yeah, every minute, 1.5 liters of blood goes through the average human liver. 1.5 liters. Now, so pick up a big 2-liter soda thing, look at that, and about 3/4 of that thing goes through that liver every 60 seconds. And it's toxic, I promise you. If you live in this world, if you're still alive in this world, you're breathing, you're eating, and you're touching toxins.
Yep.
Guarantee it.
Yep. And then the hyaluronic acid, I mean, everybody knows it's good for the joints, but it's also really good for the skin. So in all your books on wrinkles and things like that, you'll always see hyaluronic acid mentioned as being something. You'll see a lot of even the cosmetic products have hyaluronic in it topically because it does help with skin.
Yeah.
So for skin and joints, it's really good for that.
Yeah.
All right. It's 9:22. Janet wants to know, is there a connection between headaches and hormones?
There can be.
It can be, for sure.
I mean, headache, it don't have to be, but you can have a hormonal headache. I always ask people when they tell me they have chronic headaches or chronic migraines, the first thing I'll say, especially if it's a female that's younger, is it tied to your cycle? Is it at the exact same time every month? If it's at the exact same time every month, even if it's at 2 weeks or if it's at 3 weeks, but it's always timed, then yes, it's probably hormonally linked. And one of the things we use for hormone headaches is DIM. Same thing we've talked about for a few things today. DIM we do use for hormone headaches. But like I said, if the headaches are not hormonal, we don't use DIM because they don't really affect your regular headache. We have something called Migranol that helps other migraine headaches.
There's tons of other.
We have actually one of the B vitamins, riboflavin, definitely helps with headaches. And so there's just a lot of things. It depends on a lot of people's stress or tension and stress headaches. So you got to look at that too and look to see where the cortisol is. So. Headaches can come from so many different things, and it can be allergies, but yes, they can be hormonally linked, but they're not always hormonally linked.
Okay. Another question. Let's see. What causes paresthesia, and what can I do to ease the feeling?
Well, that's kind of a broad one because there's a lot of different things can cause the paresthesia. One of which is a B12 deficiency. That's always a possibility. Other things that can cause
B12 and folate.
And folate too, yeah. And but other things that can do that, you can have a pinched nerve.
Yeah, nerve impingement somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the common things that probably, and if, of course, if it's a vitamin deficiency, you take that vitamin and it doesn't just instantly go away, because a lot of times when you have numbness and tingling and things like that, it's because there's been damage to a nerve.
Right.
And damage takes a while to repair. It is not just an instant. So even if you fix the deficiency, you still got to repair. We do have something called NeuroRenew. And it actually has your B12 and folate in it, but then it has stuff like lipoic acid and benfotiamine, and to help repair the nerve once it's been damaged.
That lipoic acid is really,
and then
really important.
Also, inosine helps with nerve repair. So it just depends on the situation, what's caused. That's one reason we're always there to answer questions, is because people are different. There's not always a set thing for every single condition. You want to get more information, more things that go along, because it depends on each person what might help them.
Okay. I had one question emailed to me from Charlie. Does light therapy for seasonal affective disorder actually work?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's why they sell a lot of light boxes in Alaska. Because, Alaska, they do have to use light boxes. And light,
Land of the midnight sun.
Yeah, light makes a big difference in serotonin. So serotonin does make a difference in depression. Mm-hmm. And they do know that light plays a big role in it. Now, around here, luckily, we actually get sun even in the winter. But people stop going out. I tell people, wrap up in a blanket, go sit outside in the sun. Just don't put on sunglasses, it blocks the light. Yeah. So you have to have the light be able to get in the eyes to actually help with the seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah, even if you're in a shady spot and then there's bright sunlight, ambient light, helps. That's the key. And we're kind of amazed. We live in a beautiful place, lots of sunshine, fresh air, water, you name it, and yet people don't go outside.
We see a lot of people now. When I ask them, they never go outside.
Yeah.
And so people need to go outside. To me, animals, plants, people, everybody needs sunshine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You watch. I know y'all have two small dogs. I've got two small dogs. They like to get on the back porch and just get in the sun.
Lay in the sun, exactly. Sunbathe.
Yeah.
I got one that really loves it.
Yeah.
But
Izzy?
No, Gracie.
Gracie does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Gracie. But people need sun.
Yeah.
Now we're in a place where you can get it without getting a light box.
Yeah.
But there's some places that can.
Right.
And like I said, Alaska's known for having to use it during their time periods of darkness. Mm-hmm.
But even the Pacific Northwest, where they have so much just kind of gloomy weather and rain, etc. The sun doesn't shine as much there, so to speak. And we've talked to people and suggested from up in that area, suggested a light box, and they say, oh yeah, it really helps.
Yeah.
Sure.
And like I said, you can get one here. Some people just say, oh, even 2 or 3 days of gloomy, I get really down.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, because we do have sometimes 2 and 3 days in a row, so get a light box. It sure don't hurt you.
No.
Your red light therapy, does that
red light therapy also does help depression and anxiety, yes.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, which was the show last week in case you missed it.
Yep.
Anyway, February is National Heart Month.
Yes.
It is.
So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be concentrating on heart health.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about things from everything. Cholesterol, blood pressure, blood flow. We're going to talk about all of it.
You name it.
Yep.
Okay.
And how to keep down, keep plaque down, how to live better and have your heart healthier.
That's right.
Yep.
That's what this show's all about. So have your questions ready for next week, because next Monday morning at 9 o'clock, we'll be right back here live on WLOX CBS for another edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. You can also go on Facebook and find some information, as well as on doctorsnutrition.com. Have yourself a wonderful week. Enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you next Monday morning.
For more information on highlighting your business and services on Healthy Living South Mississippi, contact Jim Tabor at 896-1313.